Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Discover New Music podcast from Full Pelt Music, where in a moment we'll be delighted to be joined by Daytime TV, who we recently featured on our Discover New Music playlist over on Spotify with their single Side by Side. Before we get to that, though, just the usual reminders from myself. Please, if you would, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And of course, if you could hit that subscribe button, hit that like button wherever you're watching or listening. Well, welcome to the Discover New Music podcast, Will from Daytime TV. Thank you for giving us your time. How are you on this fine morning?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm in London today, and it is a beautiful sunny morning. Cannot complain about anything.
No, quite a rarity weather-wise, considering what we've had the last week or so with the storms and everything. So, no. Obviously, pleasure to have you on the podcast. We're going to be talking to you a bit about your debut album, which is out now, and also your single Side by Side, which we featured on our Discover New Music playlist recently. But before then, we always start off our podcast with the same feature, and that is what we call the origin story. Now, I'm guessing the origin story for Daytime TV is probably slightly different to the normal origin stories for bands that we tend to get. I think it's probably been a bit of a longer journey to get to where you are now. But for those unaware of the history of Daytime TV, please enlighten us.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, we sort of met through various different other musical projects and sort of ventures that we were all doing, and we were, when we started, we were super young and we just all kind of just attacked it as kind of individual musicians, and just wanted to get amongst it and be in the scene, and so kind of came to London, and yeah, that's kind of where we all met, really. And yeah, we've been through a bit of a sort of metamorphosis, I guess, through COVID. And Daytime TV was born in 2020. And, here we are now, and our debut album is out, and we are just unbelievably proud of it, but just kind of excited to keep seeing how people are enjoying it. We feel it's definitely the best stuff we've ever done, and when I say best, it's a pretty broad term. I just mean it's our favorite stuff we've ever done. So whether other people think that is up to them, but yeah, it's great, man, and we feel really lucky to be able to be making music again, having had the boring COVID period that the whole world went through, that I won't go on about because no one wants to hear about that. But yeah, just we feel really lucky to be here, and the fans have been amazing at our live shows, and it's just a really great feeling. So that's how we got here.
Yeah, and your latest single you put out before the release of the album was Side by Side, which we said we obviously featured on our playlist. So what can you tell us about that song in particular?
Yeah, it's funny, that song, I tried to write that song about 4 years ago, and I had that chorus just in my head all that time, and for some reason I just couldn't write the verses at that point. It wasn't coming to me, and I tried to write it with the guys, and it was the same. We were like, this is a really great chorus, but the verse just wasn't there. And so we, instead of just canning it, it was somewhere in my phone in like a million different voice messages, and it just lived there for a couple of years. And then I just had it in my head one day and was like, I cannot let this song just die, because it's got something. So I went and scrolled and found it eventually, and just rewrote it. And suddenly, just that different perspective after a couple of years of leaving it, The verse there. And it's, the lyrics are about, I guess, sort of failed relationship that I had, that, when the premise is like when we were together in person, it was great and it was always really fine. And even if there was, drama or something, like we could always laugh it off because you're sort of together. But when, I was being pulled all over the country and the world, playing gigs and doing various things musically, and it was those times that it was really, really hard to keep the relationship good. And so hence the sort of, when we're side by side, everything's great. But, I think the lyric is, in moments we're bulletproof, but only when we're side by side. So it's like, that was the feeling. It's sort of, we're great, but this is going to be my life for the foreseeable. So, there's no point in trying to sort of just cover the cracks every time I'm away. So it was like a situational, it was sad really, but it's just life, isn't it? Like, people are facing different things and at different points in their lives, and it was a mutual end, and it's just it's a really honest song. I mean, a lot of songs are people put themselves in a scenario that isn't real, and are like, I'm going to write about this and imagine that this had happened. But this one is just really honest and real. So it was really easy to write because it was just true. So yeah, that's where that came from.
Yeah, very organic in nature, I guess, to write from that perspective. And it's one of many singles that you guys have put out from the debut album, which is called Nothing's On But Everybody Is Listening. So talk to us about that album. Obviously, it's only just come out. For someone that perhaps hasn't heard the singles you've put out, what should they expect from the album?
I think, musically speaking, we feel like we found a niche, or something that we love, that is just really, really bang on what we want to be doing. I think a lot of musicians, when you start out, you get in a studio for the first time and it's like all a bit daunting, and you kind of just go with what the producer on the day is saying, and you end up with a sound, and it might be close to what you envisaged, but it might not be. And so this album, you're getting the truest form of what we want to sound like, because we spent 5 weeks in Cardiff recording with this amazing producer called Ramesh, and we had the time, for the first time ever, we had the time to really do it right. And I guess we're a rock band at heart, so there's lots of guitars, but also we love experimenting with sounds and synths and interesting ideas and lots of vocal harmony, and just songs that make you feel something, whether that's makes you want to get up and do something, or whether it makes you feel a little bit nostalgic, or a little bit emotional or something like that. I think there's quite a range to our songs on the record. There's some sort of slow piano ballads, but then there's some like massive riffy rock tunes. So I think we just write songs as they come, kind of, we'd never be a band to write a good song and then say, oh, we can't put that out because it's not our genre. It's just like, if it's a good song, it's a good song. So that's kind of our ethos on that. But yeah, I think if you haven't listened to us before, then you checked it out. There's a lot of energy in it, and the lyrics are really real, and we spent a lot of time and effort doing it. So hopefully you would enjoy it.
And it's sonically quite different to what you guys have done in the past with previous bands that you've been in. And it was interesting to hear you mention Romesh, the producer, because he's worked with, kind of a who's who of the rock world. Obviously Grammy nominated with Bring Me the Horizon as well. What was the experience like working with Romesh, and did he help you transition your sound from your previous sound?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he did. He is a great guy. Firstly, just such a nice guy. Has absolutely no ego. Having worked with on some huge albums, #1 records and things like that. And we got into our management got in touch with him and just said, it was kind of like we didn't think he would say yes. And then he was just like, oh yeah, I love the guys, I've heard of their music, like let's do it. And we were like, holy shit, this is gonna happen. And so yeah, we went and got the cheapest Airbnb in Cardiff that we could find, and which is another story I'll tell you about later. And yeah, we lived in the studio pretty much all day, every day. And he's just one of these producers that if you have a sound in your head, like he can find it, like he can happen sonically. Whereas in the past, because I'm rubbish with all the the tech side of it, but I sort of hear what I want, and it's so hard to sort of describe that to someone. So it's like, it needs to sound fuller, but it needs to have, you end up using really stupid words and sounding like an idiot. You're like, it needs to sound more grassy or like something like that. And so yeah, Ramesh, we just sort of had this language that really worked between us, and he knew kind of what we were all aiming at. And after a couple of days, when the first couple tracks started to kind of vaguely take shape, he was, he understood, we all had an understanding of that's what we're going for. But then also we had the time at the end to add the sprinkles and really think about that, because studio time in music these days is just crazy. It's so so to actually have the luxury of time in a studio is rare, and we only had that because it was his personal studio. So he was in it. We weren't like paying him to be a producer and paying for some extortionate studio. So it was doable, and it was just such a sort of comfortable environment for people to experiment with it. And I think if we hadn't had that time, it would be a very different record. And if we hadn't had Ramesh, it would be very different as well. So yeah, big up Ramesh.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I've got to ask then, Airbnb.
Well, so basically, none of us had really, apart from playing the odd gig, which I think we'd done twice, or maybe even just once, we'd never really been to Cardiff. And so we didn't know anything about the areas to stay in or anything. So we literally just went on Airbnb and found, because we were there for 5 weeks. So it's like, if it's a lot of money, it's like 100 quid a night or something. So I think ours was like, it was like 75 quid a night for 4 to sleep in, which is good if you think about it. And that was the cheapest on offer for that period of time, by a mile. And what we found out when we got there was we were staying in like the dodgiest end of Cardiff, like that's proper. Like the house opposite us was like not even trying to hide the fact that they were massive drug dealing operation. And one night when we were coming back from, I think, because we didn't work, we took the weekends, we took Saturday and Sundays off, because he always wanted us to like come in fresh on a Monday and like re-listen to stuff. So there wasn't much point in going home because it's quite far. So we were just like in Cardiff. So we obviously were going out, and we were just doing fun stuff. And we'd been out one night, and we were coming home about sort of 2 a.m, and we got stopped on the street by a guy with a gun, like with the a handgun. And yeah, it was just not, it wasn't cool. It was like, and when I say we, I mean, luckily me and John had already got home. So it was Gaz and Clarkey who were about 10 minutes behind us because they'd sort of stopped for chips or something. And they got stopped by a guy with a gun. And their account of it is like, he just came up to them and was like, "Oh, you lost, boys? Like, we know where you headed. Can I help you out?" And obviously they were quite drunk, so they didn't really see the like serious nature of the scenario. But then when they got in, me and John were just like, sat up, just chatting rubbish, and they were like, "There's a guy with a gun that just stopped us on the street and like was waving the gun around." And yeah, we all sort of laughed it off. And then in the morning, we all woke up and were like, "That was really serious." Like, not cool. And I guess like, yeah, we probably should have called the police or something, but we didn't do anything. And that was just like round the corner from where we stayed. So we were slightly constantly in fear that we were going to be hacked. But I don't want that to be what people think we think of Cardiff, because Cardiff is awesome and the people are so class, and we made so many pals and had such a good time there. So love Cardiff, don't love the gun guy.
No, I mean, every city has got that one area that you just don't go to, and now not to go to that area.
No one go to it, we lived in it.
Crazy experience, but I always think crazy experiences like that can sometimes bear like good fruit, and obviously perhaps there's a song in that. So
yeah, a few people have said that. It's like, use the experience and turn it into something.
Yeah, definitely. And so talking of how you've built songs, influences on songs, obviously a lot of the themes for the album are around technology and the way people interact with each other and with technology, and obviously that's become a lot more relevant over the last couple of years for obvious reasons. I mean, I guess the question is, how much of an influence was the pandemic on these songs?
Absolutely zero, because they were basically written, like, we'd written so many songs that we'd probably had about 30 songs to choose from, and we got it down to like 12, and they were all written sort of before the pandemic. So it's the weirdest thing, because people have listened to the ones we've released, but some of the lyrics sound as if we knew that COVID was coming. But I promise we didn't. There's like in Zombie, there's a line that says, you need to quarantine because your disease is so contagious. And it's like, that was purely like the disease we were talking about was like the reliance on technology, and just was just a metaphor. And then in Digital Light, it's I've got a fever. It's just like so many little lyrics that would just sound like they're COVID-y, but they really are not. But yeah, I guess it makes it quite sort of poignant at this point, because it's all even more relevant now. But I just, it was a funny thing, like the technology stuff. I didn't realize how much it got to me, but I just had so many experiences, and it's in no way like a preachy album saying like you shouldn't be relying on technology. More like I'm almost annoyed at myself that I'm sort of being dragged into this thing, and so it's kind of we're all in it together kind of thing. But it's the amount of times of just being out with pals, and it's like, right, you can't maybe not seen someone for months, and suddenly everyone's phones are on the table, and if it buzzes or lights up, it's like they grab it. It's like
Yeah,
that's the main focus of the scenario. So it's like there's two people chatting, and when that phone goes off, it's like all bets are off. The phone's in the hand. What's happening? Oh, this is happening. And it's unless it's like a family emergency or something, it's like it's 99 times out of 100. It's just like someone's liked your Instagram picture, or as something completely meaningless. And yet we all, and me included, we've got this, like, our brains just are sort of tuned to pick these things up and place them ahead of our friends and family and loved ones in the sort of hierarchy of importance. And that is a mental thing. And so, there are a few songs that are kind of about that, and a few that aren't, but it's probably not something we'll ever write about again, because I feel like I've had my therapy with it, and I've got it out on paper, and that's done. So it's not something that will come back round. But it's definitely something I'm glad to have kind of got out in the open, and I'm sure a lot of people share that opinion that I wish that I didn't have that little spike of dopamine in my brain when something goes off my phone. So I actively try to really counter that now, that my phone is always on silent. It doesn't buzz. It's always in my pocket. So, like, if I'm now terrible at answering phone calls. I'm terrible at getting back to messages because I just don't see it unless there's a break in the day and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And then it's like, oh shit, like 7 missed calls, and you can get yourself in trouble. But it's good. It's like each to their own, and that kind of just something I want to try and be better at.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously great positives to the digital world we live in, and obviously great negatives as well. And the example of looking at your phone during the conversation, we've all done it. We can all relate to that. But obviously, as a musician in 2022 now, how important is the social media aspect of being in a band? I've been quite impressed with daytime TV and what they've been doing.
It's really important, and it's like a necessary evil, I guess. I mean, our sort of management and team are always like, you've got to do more TikToks, you got to do more this, that. It's like, the amount of, not arguments, but the amount of sort of heated discussions we've had, and we all laugh afterwards, but it's like, we're musicians and we're songwriters. We're not comedians. We're not like actors. And it's a mental thing. Like there's more sort of immediate necessity to do like funny little clips that go on TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah.
And there is to like practice your instrument, or to, write a song, or to practice together as a band. And that to me is mental and is not okay. And I think also like a lot of bands that are starting out now, or have been going for a few years or whatever, some incredible bands have really rubbish social media numbers, and same as the other way around. So awful bands have huge numbers. And I think what happens a lot of the time is, which is sad for the bands that aren't that great at the socials, is that things like festivals and everything from record labels to even fans, perception of a band is kind of tainted by those numbers. And if you can often, like, I went to a festival recently that I just went to as a punter, and it was up in Scotland, and they introduced the acts on stage, and the only stat that they said was how many Instagram followers they had. And they were like, there's such and such, they've got 4,000 Instagram followers, and the stage was from top to bottom with like the biggest Instagram following was at the top and the smallest was at the bottom. And that, in my book, is not a way to gauge the like creative output of a band or an art or a project. It's like, that is not the barometer of like how good a band is and where they should be on a bill. And it's like, I guess they're trying to see it as like, that means that's their fan base and therefore they have more fans than them. But that's just not true. Like,
no.
I don't follow any bands on Instagram, or like maybe like one or two, but just purely because like maybe they do lots of, good content that I like, or they teach you how to play their songs or whatever. But I listen to other bands way more than listen to those bands. I just happen to follow them on Instagram. So it's like, I'm a much bigger fan of some bands that I don't follow on any social media. And so when people just see the fan base as the social numbers, it's just so not true. And it's like, it's really hurting bands that are starting out, because obviously you start from scratch and you've got, your mum and your pals are following you. And it's like, oh, you can't have a gig because you've only got 80 followers. And it's like, yeah, but they could be the next, they could be the next Queen for all we know. And it's like, I think that part of the industry really does my head in, because it's, we do all right on socials and, our numbers are fine, but it's like, it just isn't the way to gauge how well a band is doing.
It's not. No.
And so, that side of it isn't great, but, we've got to kind of, we're not, I guess we're not so long in the tooth that we like wouldn't play the game. So we've got to, we realize that, there's people that engage with our stuff, and we love when that happens, and we really love our online fan base. And it's just that content creation is quite a it's quite a time consuming process, and so it becomes like a full-time job, just making sure you have enough pictures and enough videos and enough little clips that you've got to sort of post out, that unless you sort of check and force yourself to do other things, you stop being a band and you start being like this weird little content farm that never. You got to just keep reminding ourselves why we're doing this. It's like, we're here to play music and record music, release it, and play it live, and those are the three things that we do. Making videos of like, the cinnamon challenge, like, as funny as they may be, that's got to come second.
Yeah, definitely. You said it, playing live is obviously massively important. I mean, talking about all this technology with it, I mean, that is human interaction at its finest, getting into a crowd, and watching a great band on stage. And you guys have been able to get out and about since everything's reopened. So obviously you played a couple of festival shows last summer, had a run of dates, both supporting and headlining. You've got some shows coming up with Blue October as well. How great has it been to get out on the road, after that period of inactivity because of the pandemic, but also to test out these songs that you've now got live? And how's that gone?
Yeah, oh man, it's been the best thing, honestly. Like, I'm sure everyone was the same in their own careers, but in the middle of lockdowns and things, I just didn't know if it was ever going to come back.
Yeah.
And we were all just a bit lost, it's like, this is our identity and this is what we do. And it was just like, we couldn't do any of it. And it felt pretty strange. And then, so when we eventually, returned and, got back on the stage, and we all fully had tears in our eyes when we were like started the first song. I just couldn't, I knew it was going to happen, because, I'm not one of those guys that's like, I never cry. Like, I'll quite happily cry in front of people. And it just hit me like a brick wall. And it was just the most awesome sort of soul feeding experience. And yeah, our headline tour in November was just unbelievable. I mean, the venues that we managed to pack out, and the way the crowds were sort of reacting to new material was just unbelievable. And I think, that same feeling that I'm talking about of me sort of, getting a bit emotional when we first got back on stage was the same for the people.
Yeah.
So like, you look down in the front row and like everyone was just like, they just couldn't believe that we were back, and I'm not talking about like we as in the band. It's just like we as and the scene was back up and running. And then we were lucky enough to do some support dates. We supported Two Door Cinema Club and the La Fontaines at sort of the Glasgow Academy, which was amazing. And just being able to sort of rev it back up, because every band just lost all momentum throughout, and so to be able to have the opportunities to be able to go and like rev things back up, and have stuff to shout about, and mainly to try out these new songs and to sort of decide, nail in the coffin of like, right, what final decisions of what tracks were going to be definitely on the album. And I guess most fans wouldn't realize how much their sort of live feedback really sort of really makes a difference to because we realize we write songs that we like, so we like all the and then it's kind of like, we've got 30 songs that we like, which ones should we put out? And obviously you want songs that kind of work together, but also you want songs that your fan base are going to like. So yeah, hearing their reactions is a big part of it. And we're about to head out with Blue October on some awesome dates, doing like Shepherd's Bush Empire in London, which is a dream venue that I've always wanted. And then Glasgow, Birmingham, and Manchester. And it's super cool of them to have us along. I didn't, when we were told about it, I didn't know who they were, because they're from the States, for anyone that doesn't know. And I didn't know who they were, but then I went on their Spotify and put on their top song, which is Hate Me.
And
I was like, whoa, it's them. And I think when I was a kid, like I used to sit and like put on like Kerrang TV, and it would be like Hate Me would be on it. And so it's mental that we're now all grown up and are going out on the road with them. So super cool, and they seem like really nice guys. We haven't met them yet, but we've had some back and forth, and we're just excited to get on the road with them. And as support slots go, we're doing 45-minute sets, which is
good,
quite a lot. So hopefully people get a good representation of sort of what we're about.
Definitely. And obviously you've got some more festival shows coming up in the summer. I noticed that you were recently added to Why Not, for example, and I think you're doing Mad Cool in Spain, so you've got some really good slots coming up. So obviously we've talked about technology and social media, but obviously just so fans know where to find you, you are on Instagram at Daytime TV Official, Facebook Daytime TV Official, and Twitter is DTTV Official. So obviously everyone listening to the podcast, head to them socials, follow the band, and you'll be able to obviously see where they're playing, hopefully come along to a show. The last portion of the podcast is what I call Setlist Science. So it's just a question on the crafting your set list. So how much attention do you pay to the structure of a set list, and have you got any rules that you try to follow when you create one?
Yes. we do, and we pay a lot of attention to setlist, and like painfully so. I mean, we have like argument days, we fall out over it. You know, it's like, it's one of those things that people have all, there's no list of songs that everyone in the band will go, that's it. So it's like, it's a constant, you know, there's a bit of give and take. You know, if you get the opener that you wanted, then you've got to sort of sit back and like let someone else choose like what we're closing with, things like that. But I think our normal rule is we want to come out big, and always like at least two or maybe three like big high energy numbers before we sort of say a word to the crowd or anything. It's just like, I'd never come on stage and go like, hello, we're daytime TV. It's just like, come on, and we let the music do the talking, and you know, we do 2 or 3 songs, and then take a moment to sort of introduce ourselves once we've just shown them what we're about. I think the main thing that we try and get in set lists is just some light and shade, like, you know, dynamics. You know, we've all been to the gig that's like 100 miles an hour from start to finish, and it's like quite intense, and when it finishes, you're almost slightly glad it's over, even if it was really good, because you're like, wow, that was intense. And we want it to be intense, but I think you can have intensity with slow songs and with, you know, really different songs and changing it up. And so, you know, on our tour we did a version of our song Ugly that was, so Gaz and Clarky would go off, and me and John did like a piano and vocal sort of ballad version of Ugly. I mean, Ugly is like a really sort of aggy, punky rock song, but we completely changed it and, you know, made it this really like beautiful sort of sad melodic piano ballad. So I think little things like that, you know, we always try and have 3 moments. So I'm giving away all our secrets here. We always try and have 3 things that people are going to go away talking about. So it's like, if you just go up and play your songs, you know, it'll be good, it'll be great, but it's like, it's just a band playing songs. Whereas if you have 3 moments that are something that they weren't expecting and talking points, and for people just go away and go, wow, like that was really cool, and how cool was it when they did that? And you know, for example, I remember seeing a band years ago, and I was like 18, I can't remember, but there's a band called Grace Potter and the Nocturnals. It's like almost quite sort of country bluesy rock. I can't remember, I think it was at a festival, I just stumbled across it, and they had this moment in the set where the whole band got round the drum kit and were all playing the kit. So there's like 4 of them, like, and we were talking about it for the whole festival. We were like, did you see Grace Potter? Like, they did this sick thing. And like that moment, I was like, that things like that you've got to weave in, because, you know, it's easy to walk away going, did you see them? Oh yeah, it was good. But it's like, did you see them? They like took one of their songs and made it into this really sad ballad. Or, you know, we were doing this thing every night on our tour where we'd take like Gareth's snare skin from the previous night and we'd sign it. And we'd like frisbee it out into the crowd, and like get everyone to try and catch it. And like, there's little things like that. It kind of, it breaks up the set, and it makes people sort of, you know, some people that might be just sort of passively viewing your set, they become engaged. And so we try and have like 2 or 3 little things that, you know, can just be the difference between you and another band, maybe.
Memorable hook, you know, for the audience. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Will, for joining us on the podcast. Obviously the album's fantastic, and listeners need to check it out. And obviously if they can pop along to one of your shows coming up, or catch you at a festival this summer, obviously follow the band on social media. Will, what would be your final message for listeners today?
Oh, well, firstly, thank you for having me. And secondly, I mean, if you've made it this far, congratulations. And yeah, as you said, come along. I mean, our whole thing is live music. Like that's what we're about. That's why we do this. We want to be one of the best, if not the best, live bands in the world. When we're done, when we're grey and old, we want to say we right up there, and it's what we pride ourselves on. So come along and check out a live gig, and you will not be disappointed. And just go and listen to the album. And I would ask that, if you've got the time, or if you're on a run or something, just stick the album on from start to finish and listen to it like an album, because so often these days it's just, people just listen to songs and it's like in playlists and it gets skipped around, and I do that too. And that's but we spent a lot of time working out the order, and it's like kind of a story all the way down. So if you've got the time and you fancy a trip down daytime TV lane, then go and play the record from start to finish and let us know what you think.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is really important, to listen to. The artist always has a concept of what they want for that album, and like you said, cherry picking the odd songs great, but being able to sit in on a run or just whatever, listen, absolutely fantastic. No, thank you so much, Will, for joining us, and best of luck.
Not at all, man. Thank you so much.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed that chat there with Daytime TV. If you did, please do us a favour, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening. Make sure you check out bands on social media and try and pop along to one of their shows coming up soon. And of course, check out their debut album. If you would, do follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And we will be back very soon with another edition of the Discover New Music podcast.